Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to the A24 project here in the Nerd Party Network. Dallas King and I, Lee Hutchison, make our way through the A24 filmography and along the way bring you interviews with the talent involved in front of and behind the camera. In this episode, I welcome Art Director Liz Kloczkowski to share her experience working on the amazing Under the Silver Lake and her career since, working on Promising Young Woman, Quantum Leap, and discussing her incredible insight working on seasons 2 and 3 of Star Trek Picard. Thanks so much to Liz for joining me and hope you too will enjoy this interview. Exploring where the cameras cannot see. You're our first ever art director that we've welcomed onto the show. For those maybe not familiar with this role, can you explain what your day job is?
Sure. So art directors basically take what's written in the script, and we make that a reality. So we're kind of a management position, but we coordinate the sets, props, set dressing, construction, paint, greens, floors, but everything you see on camera, that's not an actor. It's basically.
And that's quite a fascinating one because it feels like when you've listed off all those roles there, like they're all a job in themselves to an extent. Like, how have you turned that into a career? Have you had to sort of take on so many different trades to kind of get to a position like this? Or is there an element of it being sort of quite a more management style position, I guess?
Yeah, we actually art directors come from all over. So a lot of art directors start in architecture, some of them start in theater. It's definitely more of a management position, but any skill set that you have that you can add to the table. Sometimes someone's a painter or an interior designer. I actually went to film school, so I got into the art for films in film school. So I know somebody, her major is like women's studies, and then she got into art department, and you just start interning and working on projects, and that's how you get into it. It's just really by doing.
So you obviously go from university, studying at film school, to turning into career. What was the kind of pathway to achieving something like that?
For me, it was a lot of networking. You start small and you're working for art departments in small roles. And then each role that you do a good job or it was a pleasant experience, they'll call you back. If you do a great job, they might give you more responsibilities. And so for me, that's kind of how I climbed, was just giving it my all and trying really hard and getting really good results. And so then your boss has another project. If you're the first person they call, then that's how it sets up. So one job just snowballs into another job, and everything's really word of mouth.
And kind of before you even got started, like, who inspired you? What kind of like film, TV creatives inspired you to kind of pursue this as a career?
Yeah, I think I was always kind of a cinephile. So just, if you're watching movies every day, you're watching TV, you're really involved in it. I think there was, when I was a kid, DVD features had just come out. And so I saw, I think it was Pirates of the Caribbean behind the scenes. And there was this jib arm going over a pirate ship and explosions and the actors. And I just was like, what is that? And how do I do that? So I think it was that, and then I think Lord of the Rings too. There was like the behind the scenes featurette.
Oh God, those, I still watch those to this day. Like, one of my friends that will no doubt be listening to this podcast, he's recently just finished a rewatch of just the special features of the Lord of the Rings. They still hold up this day, and I feel like that's something that's missing for this kind of current generation. Like, that was like a film school in itself, all these DVD special features, feature-long documentaries that you would get with that. It was priceless to an extent.
Yeah, and they're still doing it. Like, I've seen Game of Thrones puts out like an hour featurette, and House of the Dragon put out an hour of interviewing the crew and behind the scenes and all of that. And so that's really how I got inspired to look at it as a career. But I had gone to college for journalism, and the film school just happened to be in the same building. And I was looking at what other people were doing, and maybe that's what I should be doing. And so I switched in my sophomore year, and I never looked back.
You mentioned kind of like that word of mouth, like networking to an extent kind of helps you get onto projects. But what is like the kind of the audition process for when you kind of formally get brought onto something? Do you have to bring like a portfolio, your view of the design? How does that kind of work for you?
Yeah, sometimes that's the way it is, especially if you're being interviewed for a project that you don't know. Like, if the designer doesn't know me, so a first introduction I will bring a portfolio and I'll meet them at their office on whatever lot that they're on. So they'll schedule a meeting and the designer might meet 10 people and make their choice that way. But for me, the last couple of years, I've just gotten phone calls which were, are you available? When can you start? There wasn't really like somebody just recommended me, and then that's kind of how it goes. So like for Under the Silver Lake, I had pie with Michael Perry, the production designer. And the decorator friend of mine, Nicole Murtha. She knew Michael through commercials, and she knew he had a project coming up, and she said, "Let me make an introduction." And so I just showed up. It was a rainy day, and I showed up to have pie with Michael and talk about stuff I was, way above my knowledge level. And he had a project coming, and what did I think? And he just had my name on his little, the short list. And so when the Silver Lake started crewing up, he called me, and there I was, starting to work.
What's your kind of like, I guess, calling card? Like, do people kind of call you up for, say, certain type of project, or projects where there's certain skill sets that you as a manager bring? Like, what do you think's behind people calling you up to get involved? Or is there always maybe a specific type of task that you tend to get brought in for?
Sometimes I'm a cleaner upper where I'll come into a project that is short staffed, or I'll be in to kind of fix a bad schedule or something like that. But a lot of times I get called in if it's a hard job because I'm a go-getter, and so they say, "Oh, this is a lot of work. Oh, we should bring in Liz." But it's not really a specific. I'm not really pigeonholed yet into sci-fi. I mean, I've done sci-fi, stop motion, reality. They're all different skill sets for art department, but we generally do the same thing. Like the construction is the same, and there might be little niche things like stop motion. Everything is at a certain scale. Like you're building tiny things. In reality, we build rooms to hide the cameras, and so there's a niche for everything that you do. Sci-fi too. It's tons of research and materials that the niche sci-fi people use. But that you just kind of learn as you go. Like I'm on a Western historical piece right now, so I'm not doing sci-fi at all.
You've mentioned it, like you've worked on a range of stuff like commercials, music videos, TV, film, prestige film. Like, how does the kind of process differ on these projects? And is there one that you enjoy the most?
Yeah, I don't know if it differs as much as the process is the same, where we come in, we set up the art department, we read the scripts, we do our breakdowns, we do research. And so we'll start with that. So when people ask us like 1800s, well, what would they be using? What do the wagons look like? Or Star Trek, what year are we filming this futuristic stuff? So you do that research ahead of time. Or even like Promising Young Woman or Under the Silver Lake, where they're modern day, but we pull visuals. What are things that the director might like or respond to? And we start putting those on boards and making presentations. So that process is the same across all shows. It's just what you're researching. Like Kindred, and I'm on American Primeval now. I'm in the 1800s, so all my research is 1800s reference images. But that process is the same, and it depends. The workload will change based on where you're filming. So some projects like Star Trek season 3 was almost all on stage. Under the Silver Lake had one big or two big sets on stage, and then a lot of locations. Promising Young Woman was almost all locations. So if you're on location, you go scouting. So you're in a van with the director and the designer and producers, and we go and we look at where they're suggesting we'll film a coffee shop or we'll do this. And that's really where I come in, where we look at what is there and what do we need to bring? Do we need to paint it? Do we need to add walls? Do we need to add carpet or anything big like that? And then we'll start planning. Well, what should it look like? Let me get the carpet on order. Let's hire, construction will be hired, but we'll give them their work list. So it's really like a project management at that point. Some is that location and some is stage build. And if it's stage building, we'll start that earlier, and we'll do architectural drawings and all of our stage drawings and our details and all of that to get that going. So
that's fascinating. And is there like a kind of, I guess, say like a promising young woman, for example, like so much on kind of like exteriors or like coffee shops, kind of restaurants, family homes, and then you get, say, something like on the other end, like Picard, as you say, all stage. Do you feel like as an art director, you're able to people to look at something like a Picard and go, oh, look at that person's work, whereas like a promising young woman, people might go, oh, that coffee shop was always there, that drug shop's always there, and people might not pick up on like the art director's work, I guess, to an extent.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard because you're leaning into a location that if it's already you walk into something that's basically done, it's hard to take credit for it because it's already you're just shooting in a bookstore or a library. But uh, a lot of times people will appreciate the visuals, especially if it ties into the project cohesively. And you can tell that we are doing things like promising a woman. The coffee shop was an empty. It was an empty room, and so that was actually for me that was harder to get that to look right than Picard, where we had tons of money to do all sorts of fun stuff. This is like, oh, we have to do a coffee shop from scratch. Yes, we have the walls, but there was nothing else there. So stuff costs money, and it is a lot of. It's actually a harder. I think it's harder to problem solve with less money, but it's also like when the sky's the limit, where do you stop being creative? But it is weird to see like what people will respect more.
Yeah, I always think of it like in Promising Young Woman. I always loved was it like the drug shop where they have like the Paris Hilton song, and it was just like it had that sort of like neon pop style thing. You were like, oh, clearly someone's designed that place or added the signs, really made it pop in such a unique way. But I'd never thought that was like a fake coffee shop. Well, I suppose real, but kind of designed, I guess.
Yeah, well, that the pharmacy was a real pharmacy that we brought the sign in. But yeah, it's like it's really how you film it, and it's interesting. Under the Silver Lake and Promising Young Woman focused a lot on the art in their filming, whereas sometimes you're looking at heads with fuzzy backgrounds. Those both of those projects like zoom in on the art. So all of this hard work that you're doing, you get a featured shot of it. And a lot of times we're making stuff and you never see it, or it's in the background, or it's on the table. Silver Lake's like zooming in on all of the map that we made and the all of this all this art that we had done that we struggled with. You get a featured shot. So I think we did get a lot. The art department did get a lot more credit because you're seeing all of our stuff up front featured.
You spoke about how like Under the Silver Lake came around through like a contact, etc. Like from that conversation to getting involved on set, what was the kind of turnaround for something like that?
I think it was a couple of months actually, because designers know they have projects coming, but the schedule's not set. There's a lot of stuff in flux, and that project had gone on hold. And I was actually working at Robot Chicken for Stupid Buddy Studios, which was a staff position. And then when Michael called me for it, I knew I didn't want to do stop motion forever. I had wanted to get back into the union and work on bigger projects. And so when Michael called me, I actually had to quit my job working at Robot Chicken because it wasn't like sometimes the schedule doesn't, one job is ending and the next one starts the next day. Sometimes you've got to end your jobs early. It happens all the time. And so then what you do is you replace yourself. So you find someone else that does what you do. Would they like this job? You replace yourself and then you move on to the next one. And so Michael called me and he was like, all right, it's time, and so I gave my notice, and I think maybe 2 weeks after he called me, I was in a new office starting a new project. So it's very common.
We're thinking about like Robot Chicken, like it's so layered, like something like that, where there's so much things going on in the background. It's all kind of popping. And I guess there's an element of that, as you say, with Under the Silver Lake, with codes, maps, so much. Was there that element of that kind of background was kind of appealing to them to get you involved in?
Yeah, I hope it was. But a lot of times it's moving so fast that you work with, a lot of times you work with people that you don't know. And so nobody really knew me at that point. But for me, it was just a bonus because I had that experience. But a lot of times you find out on the day whether someone's doing a good job or not.
So can you kind of talk through what would be like an average day on the job for you on like Under the Silver Lake? Like, as you mentioned, there's like maps and just like comics, etc. Like, what do you design and get involved in? And what was your kind of contributions on a day-to-day kind of with the film?
Yeah, Silver Lake those were long days. So I would start in the office maybe at 6 a.m., 6 or 7, and double check that the art department was moving forward. Michael, the designer, he was an early bird, so he would be there. And we'd go from the office, we'd go to the mill, we would check on construction. How was all of that going? Back in the office, props might need help with a map. Like I think at that time, props was coordinating the map with an outside vendor. So props and the graphic designer might need notes. So you're back in the office after you go to the mill. checking on those people. And then when, say, the company starts shooting it's a 10 a.m. call time. So for 9 a.m., like maybe an hour early, you go out to whatever location they're shooting at, park your car, maybe there's breakfast, you go and have breakfast. Maybe David, the director, needs to see something. So someone would give me something to show David. You wait by his trailer, see if he's available. Oh, okay, show him this stuff. David will give approvals. I'll let people know this stuff is approved. Show up to the set. What problems are going on? Props maybe is in like a crisis. What help do you guys need? And so I'll help props for a little bit. I'll let them start shooting. Once everything's quiet and the shooting company is going well, I'll go back to the office and start planning for the next day. So hopefully you're like a week in advance and you're planning for next week's work, but that project just happens so fast that a lot of times you're just a day ahead. So then you'll go back to the office, you'll look at, what does the next day need? Maybe there's a location that's installing. Like we were at Bronson Caves, doing the Bronson Caves where we did the like underground rave with the cemetery tables. So that might be installing. So then you might go and pack up your bag and then drive out there, check on that install. Maybe go back to the company. I mean, you're basically running around all day, making sure everything is set.
And how long would you be on, like, involved in a project like this? For obviously you come on sort of for pre-production. Are you very much there until the end of shooting, or are you kept on for like potential reshoots or some post-production kind of work?
Yeah, so I'm on usually for the low budget features, I'm on like 5 weeks before they start shooting. So we have 5 weeks to kind of get everything figured out. I'll be on the whole project and then maybe a couple of days a day or two to wrap up all the files, get everything on a drive, pack up everything they might need for all the set photos, everything they might need for reshoots. So then we'll load that into like a storage container. And they did call me for reshoots, but maybe 6 months later, they had to do reshoots. And then Michael was out of town, so they just said, Liz will run the reshoots. So we actually had maybe a week's worth of shooting.
Was that kind of that post sort of Cannes period? Because it felt like there was a turnaround from sort of the film coming into Cannes, a bit of a reaction and going, right, we maybe need to rejiggle that. Would that be sort of that kind of explain that sort of 6 months period, or is that kind of pretty standard?
No, we had already shot the reshoots at that point, but that was kind of unique that David took it back. I think he took it back to the editing room, right, and changed some things, and there was a delay in the release, but that we had already filmed. We had shot the reshoots at that point.
What's David Robert Mitchell like as a director to kind of work alongside on a project? He's someone we don't really kind of know a lot about at this stage, despite the fact that he's got a couple of features behind him.
David is awesome. He's so interesting, and he's got kind of a Quentin feel where he's got like all these stories that he's trying to tell you and explaining his vision. He was really pleasant to work with. He's definitely an auteur director, where they have their kind of specific style. But I don't interact with directors as much as, say, actors or producers. So I usually get them in the morning to ask questions. Hey, do you like this? Anything the director needs to be shown. A lot of times it'll be me checking with them, just because I'm there in the morning. So, or if they say, hey, for tomorrow's work, I'd really like, and then they'll make a request. So I'm there kind of to receive that stuff, but I am only there to check on the set or if things are going wrong. If they're filming, I'm there in the morning and then I'm off solving tomorrow's problems.
I'm curious, like, I can imagine like early morning, everyone's after like the director. Is there like a hierarchy to like being able to grab a director in the morning, or is it like sort of the early bird that kind of wins out in the end of getting in there first with their requests or questions?
Yeah, it depends on if it's a hard day, I might not bother him or any director. If it's a very involved morning, you can kind of tell, oh, this isn't the time. But if it's a casual morning and they're having breakfast, sometimes I'll like descend on them at the breakfast table or, something like that. It's really just, hey, do you have time to look at this? And a lot on Silver Lake, I think I was the main point person showing stuff, but so everyone would just the props or construction or whoever, they'd give it to me and then I bring it to him. But it's not always like that. Like if I'm off dealing with something, Terry, the art director, might, or Michael, the production designer. It really depends on like who's available, and if you're working on the project, then you might be the one asking those questions.
And what was it like to work on that set? And did you get to interact much with Andrew Garfield? For me, this is one of my favorite of his performances. I was reading an article, I think it was earlier today, where he was like, "Oh, people just don't understand method acting," which got me thinking. I was like, did he really make himself like smell like a dead raccoon on the set of Under the Silver Lake?
No, he I think for me, I didn't realize that he was British because he was speaking in an American accent the whole time. Yeah, and I had never met him, and I hadn't really seen many interviews with him. I knew he was Spider-Man, but he was American in that too. So it wasn't. I was very like shocked to see him in an interview after Silver Lake, and I was like, oh, he didn't speak in his normal voice this whole time. And there was one other time where he had been sitting in the tomato juice bath, and he had come out, and the stage that we were on was like so cold, like 0 degrees. And he was there like shivering, like covered in tomato juice. And I looked at him and I was like, "Are you okay?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." But like, yeah, you just have to check and make sure that like it was hard to tell. But other than that, I don't really like Promising Young Woman. I had questions for Carrie at some points. Like she was involved with a lot of stuff, but it depends on how involved they are with like what their character's room has, or they have requests or any of that stuff, then I'll talk to them more. But I'm usually already gone by the time all the glamour shows up.
Can that be a challenge sometimes where an actor might have like they've got their Pinterest board or their own ideas about the space that they live in or what they'd be reading or what would be like the little touches compared to perhaps you as sort of the art director? Is there ever sort of like a conflict or a disagreement, and who kind of usually wins out, I guess?
We'll usually do what the actor is asking. For us, as long as we get it early enough, so early on in prep when we're figuring out someone's bedroom is a big, each character kind of their bedroom really shows the character. If they do have requests, it's great to get it early because then we'll build all of that in. It sucks sometimes when they're like, "Oh, this isn't what I was expecting," and change everything. But that happens. The actors don't do that as much as the director will do it. Like, "Oh, this isn't what I was expecting." And so on the day, then you're starting to panic and you'll be running around trying to get what they were envisioning. But that's really why it's so important to talk about this stuff ahead of time. But it just depends on how busy it is. So if there's no time to talk about it, then it's a surprise on the day.
What kind of challenges did like a film like this present with like how rich the sets would be with like details or all these kind of small touches? Was that all in like the script, or is it sort of a challenge thrown to yourselves as the art team to bring maps or bedrooms to kind of life in as much detail as possible?
David is very descriptive in his script writing. So you really just have to consult the script and it's all in there. But sometimes what would get us is we'd be going so fast that you'd miss something and you'd show up in the day and he'd be like, "Hey, it's in the script." Like that's you on any project. The script is you always read the script before the night before. We're always reading it to double check. Hey, did we get everything? Did we dot our T's and dot our I's and cross our T's? But David's scripts are very, very, very descriptive. So that for us, it was very easy. It's really building the codes into all the art and the specifics of what the art needs to look like. That he was very particular with how that stuff should look. But a lot of times, if the director is creative, they're asking you for that stuff. Like, "All right, I want it to be like this, and all this. We're gonna do bounce a shot from this element to this element to this element." Like we all know about it because that's in their vision. So
One of my favorite touches is, and it always makes me laugh, of like it's like the Nirvana poster with it's like, oh, it's signed by Kurt Cobain, but it's actually done by his daughter. Like, say like a small touch like that. Is it someone where you go, okay, we find out what Kurt Cobain's signature looks like, or do we find out what his daughter's signature is and try and put that through a prism, or is it just like just slap Kurt Cobain on there? Like, what's the kind of level of detail for like a little gag like that to an extent?
Oh yeah, that was a nightmare. So I remember that I signed it. So that silver Sharpie that's my signature. But we didn't even have enough money to print tons of posters. So I had like 3 posters, and I had 3 shots at getting it right. And I think I had looked at Kurt Cobain's signature and Frances her signature too. I had written it on a piece of paper maybe 50 times to get my hand trained to do it. And then I had come up to David and I was like, "All right, I'm about to sign this poster, but we don't have we got one shot at it basically. And so he's like standing over me, and I had signed it a whole bunch until it looked like what he wanted on a piece of paper. And I did it 1, 2, 3. And then he put the poster underneath and I signed it like fast, just so it was like, you don't get in your head and you don't screw it up. But it was very stressful.
See, this is the type of stuff that we miss on DVD audio commentaries. Like that would
Yeah, yeah,
definitely
yeah.
be a section of like, so we're having this sex scene here, but here's the real level of detail we're going to go into with this signature.
Yeah, no, it was, and I remember it was the producers were around, and I was a small role on that project. Now I could be a little bit, I'm less shy now. As the older you get, the less shy you get. But that was one of my first really art direction gigs. I was very shy, and I was like, we're here to do this, but I'm waiting in line to get that info. But yeah, that would have been fun on a DVD.
It's also almost interesting when I was kind of watching it again for the God knows how many times last night, where I was thinking about like kind of character of Sam, and I suppose you've probably been exposed to kind of that level of fandom that's out there now, like kind of watching, say, like social media, etc. After like recent episodes of Picard, where like you can share artwork and people are looking for in your work and design for codes, messages, meanings, hints for what's to come. What's kind of like when people engage with your level of art, like a Sam does in Under the Silver Lake?
It's fun. I wasn't even really on Twitter. I mean, I've had a Twitter, but I posted maybe 4 times before Picard season 2. And Dave Blass, the designer of Picard, actually got me back into posting on there. He's like, I tagged you in something and you didn't say anything. And I said, oh, I didn't see it. So I started, posting some stuff, and you don't realize how many fans like love seeing that stuff, and like just getting all these nice messages from people like, hey, thank you so much. But it's just strange. And I feel like I should have been on social media earlier than that, because I could have been posting about Silver Lake or about Promising Young Woman. But it's hard because you don't know what you're allowed to post and what are I mean, this once it's aired on TV, it's generally safe to post. But I'm also not trying to like steal the limelight from the director. If David's got stuff he wants to, the vision he wants to, I'm not trying to like spoil any spoilers. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic.
It's interesting where like I was thinking about like some recent like discussions where there's almost like that challenge that I wonder for art directors now, where there's like the point of view of what used to be like winks and nods and Easter eggs can almost sometimes be seen as like fan service to an extent. Is that something that's like hard to balance? And what's your kind of thoughts on sort of like discussions like that?
I think that the fan service, I mean, it is fan service, but I think it's great. It's not just Picard. I mean, all the Star Treks do it. They've been doing it since, I mean, Next Generation and Enterprise and Deep Space Nine and all these shows they use stuff because it pays homage to previous shows, and fans love it. But it's also ties the world together. We're not just, oh, let's make up fresh stuff every single time. You bring in Quark Industries, or you bring in stuff that the fans will remember from an old show. It just makes that world that much more. I mean, Star Wars does it too. It really just, I think it enhances your world because it's repeating stuff that would exist, not just new each episode. But I like it, and I like Easter eggs. I mean, you see these articles that are like 99 Easter eggs in the last episode. I'm like, oh, I don't even remember doing that many. But
And then there was always that, I think of that one in Silver Lake that always got like it, that I loved seeing it with the studio audience, where like I think it's like you see Sam reading this like Spider-Man comic and everyone gives like, oh, that's quite a little, like it's such a little funny little touch that's just for some of the audience that get it. For others, it's just something background. It just brings that kind of character to life. I guess it's always just depends on how people engage with it, these, I guess.
yeah, and I mean, directors have been doing it since the beginning of filming. They've been putting their children in it because, oh, like my kids have a cameo, or my uncle, they're always doing that, things that are important to them. Even like, what was that? Oh, I can't remember the name of the movie now. The new Jordan Peele movie with the aliens in it, with
Oh,
the
no.
spaceship. Nope. Yeah. There was like homage to like the Scorpion King or something. And I think he had worked on it, or I spent time trying to figure out what the connection was. I'm like, what is this Easter egg? And I was confused. But a lot of times that's all it is just like, oh, the director worked on that project, or like even Terry Matalis with 12 Monkeys. We would put a lot of 12 Monkeys because it's important to him and it's his project. So I think it's fun.
And as someone like, it's interesting for me, I haven't had the chance to see 12 Monkeys yet. So it's like a reference that I would never pick up. So it just becomes background. And when I watched season 3, I watched with my partner who's seen barely any Star Trek ever. So things that would mean nothing to her, but just makes the background more rich and something. Whereas me, I'd be like, give her a nod, going, oh, that means that. I think sometimes people can get caught in their own world is what these things are, as opposed to like there's actually a wider audience that just have no clue what's kind of going on, but it just looks nice. It makes things feel alive, I guess. The kind of Silver Lake wasn't given the release it like truly deserved, and it really seems like it's continued to find an audience and a cult following kind of since. When did you get to see it for the first time, and what was your reaction?
I saw it in theaters twice. The first time was at AFI Fest. There was like a screening there, and that was in LA. And the Los Angeles people really got it. So I left like, oh, this movie's amazing, and fans love it, and all the viewers, it just got such a great review. And then I saw it in Cannes, and it didn't get like it got an ovation, but the afterwards, like talking about like at parties and people talking about films that they watched, a lot of people were like, oh, I didn't get it. And so I found that interesting because I had seen it in 2 different countries. And so I don't know if the Cannes audience didn't get it, but the LA audience, like especially it was like it's a AFI Fest is like there's a lot of college students there. They all found it hilarious. Like every LA joke, all the the little nuances to Los Angeles, people like Hollywood Forever screenings and going to a party that's themed like a cemetery and all of this stuff. They're just like, we know it because we live in Los Angeles, but if you don't, maybe you don't get it. And so I think there was a part of the audience that missed it. And I don't know if that was the critical one or what, but it does have a big following.
Like I was lucky enough to see it in the cinema almost like 11 months after kind of Cannes. It came to like the Glasgow Film Festival here in Scotland, and that was such a great one to like watch with like an audience and so on, because it felt like for a long time it was in this limbo period of waiting to come out. Is it coming out? Like, what's going to happen? And it seemed to get like a decent release here in the UK through sort of Mubi, which was excellent. But what was it like to go to a film that you've worked on in Cannes? Like, it seems like kind of the pinnacle for a lot of people to have their work kind of premiere there.
Oh yeah, Cannes. I'm actually spoiled now. Like I've gone to Sundance, and I was like, my first festival was Cannes, so I'm kind of I'm a snob now. But it was just magical. It was just you're there, you're watching films all week, and then you've got the date that yours is screening, and it's a red carpet. And I was just the art director, but I was already traveling in Europe, and I said, oh, I'd like to go to Cannes. I knew that Silver Lake was going, and I asked Michael, like, hey, do you care if I like come to the festival? And between Michael and David and Adela, the producer, they put me on the Cannes list so I could go to the premiere. But I didn't even have Cannes tickets. Like I wasn't planning on going. And last minute they kind of got me in. But yeah, you're red carpeting, and they feed you dinner before, and you've got like a chair with your name on it, and you're there watching all these elements of all this stuff that you killed yourself working on. So it was magical.
It's kind of like, it's highly amusing, like at the end, like when I love the design of those closing credits, and like your name is like right next to a dog that seems to be hanging to death. Does that give you sort of like a chuckle? Are you someone that's like watching it, sort of like looking out for your name in those titles?
Yeah, it was. I kind of helped work on the titles too. The titles in the zines. I was pretty heavily involved in the design and the execution of the zines. And then when we animated the zines, the animation company was a friend of my roommates that they were like, yeah, they could animate it for our budget. And so then they ended up doing the closing credits. But I think that the hanging dog was by accident next to my name, but it's also very ironic. But yeah, they came out better than I was expecting. And it's just so fun and quirky, and it just leans into what that project was.
Did you steal like a copy of those zines that you'd worked on? Have you got it like stored away somewhere?
Yeah, I do. I think I do have. I mean, they're just little like printouts. They're not anything too crazy, but I think I do have one in my little art department box.
It's one of those things I keep like every like year. I hope like A24 have that reputation of releasing merchandise and stuff. And me and my co-host have talked about it with like we love an Under the Silver Lake fanzine just to be released online or something that we could look through. I just love those little touches, and it's one of those films like you just want that little bit of merchandise from it that you can just put on a shelf or on a bookcase that only like you might pick up what it is, but would have sort of a little memento, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be cool if they see. And I'd love to get involved with stuff like that, but I don't really know where. Like that's I'm not really involved with this. I haven't been on the project in 7 years or something. So it's someone would have to approach me and ask like, "Hey, do you have that artwork? We want to do something." So
there was the talk almost like about like an original cut can that sort of like evolved into the final cut. Was there anything that you've kind of seen that was maybe in that sort of can cut that didn't make the sort of final cut that really stood out for you?
Oh, that's a good question. But because I saw it at AFI Fest, I saw it at Cannes, and I actually saw it. It was screening at the Dome in Hollywood, which is like to see your name like on the in the credits of the and you're in the Dome, and it's just like. But I actually didn't, and hopefully David won't kill me for this. I didn't really notice the difference in it, and I think
when
it's
we
just
spoke with
because
Disaster Piece, he was like the same. He was like, I don't think there was much of a difference. I feel like it's maybe been something having now you said that and him say that like not much at all kind of changed. It felt like more sort of gossip than anything else in the end.
Yeah, I mean for us though too, it's hard because we've seen all the scenes, and we've seen stuff that they maybe didn't even make the cut that we'll remember because we were there for it. So for us, for like the filmmakers that aren't the editor or the director, for us, it's all kind of like, or even if they were to scramble it out of order, none of us would notice because the scene for us, they're just events, memory events that happened, not like, oh, this is how the project was edited. So yeah, sorry, I
No,
can't
no, no,
remember.
no. That answers a question for me, definitely. And like, what is your reflection on your involvement on Under the Silver Lake? And I guess it's kind of growing legacy.
I'm just grateful that they had me and that I was able to be involved in the way that I was. It was an early project for me. It had just broken me out of stop motion. It had gotten me into the Art Directors Guild union. I wasn't even in that yet. So this project was like my launching piece for the rest of my career. So, there's that, but also just kind of how closely you can work with all these collaborators. And like I could email David and he'd be like, "What's up?" So it's just what a great, I mean, very stressful, very hard project, but like also what a great little portfolio piece to have, and then like them taking me to Cannes was just like icing on the cake, like it's a memory I'll never forget.
We focus obviously on the filmography of A24, and some of their films have truly incredible work from the art directors. From their filmography, is there anything that's kind of stood out for you?
The Witch, Ex Machina, Green Knight, The Whale. I mean, these are all like great artistic projects that it's interesting now that they're all A24. But yeah, there's something I like that they take a risk on something that maybe a bigger studio won't, and you don't know, is it going to make money? Are fans going to like it or not? But the story is interesting enough. But I think what all these projects have in common is, Midsummer too, like forever scarred me. But the storytelling is there. It's not just about visuals or acting or whatever. Its story is really key. And that, for me, I mean, having gone to film school, that's the most important thing. And I find that in common.
There was a great talking of special features. Like the Green Knight had like an hour-long making of documentary. And it was so fascinating to see their mill and how they designed that like great hall and how it was like, oh, we can't actually fit it into this like studio space. And like, we've got to extend the corridor out into the car park and so on. It's stuff that you would never pick up when watching the film and so on. And it just makes it all the more richer and a real kind of celebration, I guess, of talent like yourself and the teams like that go into work in these films that we just don't pick up on some of the hard work that goes into it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either. A lot of times I watch this stuff and I wouldn't have put that together. But as a filmmaker, you do see kind of how they do stuff more, like the process becomes more apparent. But when you watch a project where you don't notice any of that, tells me it's a great project because I'm not stuck in the making of. And even now, it's funny. Like, I talked about how watching the making of DVD featurettes got me into the industry. Now I actually have a hard time watching them because I get jealous. And I'm like, oh, I wish I worked on that, but there's also so much you can learn from them.
You've worked on we've spoken about a range of projects, and it was quite funny. One of my mates, I mentioned I was interviewing you, and he looked at your website, and he was like, "Oh, I can't believe she's worked on X and X and X." But for me, one of the ones that stood out that I was curious about was Love Island. Like, I must admit, I've never seen the American version. I can't even believe there's like different locations, etc. But like, I was curious about that. Like, I know what the UK ones like. They go to this kind of Spanish villa, hook up for 2 months, whatever. But how did something like that fit in with your career, and how much like influence do you have where so much of the design is long established and I guess remains kind of largely static for such a long running series?
Yeah, they just called me on Love Island for the prep, and then I haven't worked on any of them even into I've just done the previs, all of the 3D rendering for them. They've invited me twice actually to go out for the install, where we have all these drawings and we have everything ready. And I'm a field art director, so usually you ship me out and I'm there overseeing stuff on the day to day. And Rich Jensen has called me like twice to do that, and both times I've had conflicts. And so it's just I met him just before COVID, and it's just such a great job because you work from home, but he does all of his visuals are so heavily designed on the computer, and every little element is 3D modeled, and he shops all of his textures, and he deals with the studios and does all of that. But all of it goes into the model. And so he has like 3 or 4 of us working on redesigning for whatever the location is. So each season they go to a different, like you could say, a villa. Like there was one in Fiji. I had worked on that one, which then moved to Hawaii. Sorry, Fiji moved to Vegas, and then the following season they went to Hawaii. And so Rich will send me out to go measure the villa that it's like an abandoned building or like an old something that we have to measure it to do all of our construction. But it's actually a really heavy construction show. And once you've worked in reality, you know how big the camera hides need to be. And he and I just have a vernacular. So he calls me all the time for these projects. And Love Island's not the only reality project I've worked on. Like there's other ones too that aren't even on my website. But it's just once you have the skill set, they'll keep calling you back because they know that like you've worked on it before.
I suppose it's one of those ones where I just assume, hey, all of that's there. They just need to ship in all the beds and love pads,
Oh yeah.
etc. I suppose, is it one of those ones? Is there an element of like there could be the classy touch, or what? Like, is it almost having to make sure that you fit in with the genre style of the type of romance that they're looking to kind of do, and so on? Because I suppose similar to Promising Young Woman, there's like the neon signs, there's the bright colors, there's pools, etc. I suppose is building around like the pool's already there, so like we need to build in a gym area or a fire pit, etc. Add those kind of elements in, I guess.
Yeah, he has the designers have that look established in their heads. And so Promising Young Woman, Michael was the one really spearheading like the pastel pinks and the light blues and all of that. So when we're doing sets, we'll show him stuff that has that in it. But Love Island has it's already been established what the sets look like, but they actually do kind of revamp them every year. And so the beds will be rebuilt, or the graphics that go on the beds. The beds are light boxes, so they need to be designed to fit lights, and like the hidden cameras have to be worked into the set where you don't see them. Or like when we were in when we were in Vegas, it was a double pool that he wanted to cover one of the pools and make into a lounge and a gym area. So now I'm designing a structure that covers the pool, but it can't just be a piece of plywood. It has to be an interesting, and the sunshades and all of these things need to be designed to fit into that world. So Star Trek's the same thing. We're designing stuff to fit into the Star Trek world. So whatever the world is, the world building that we do, it's different. You have to be a chameleon and work yourself into what they're trying to do.
If anyone ever makes fun of me in my office for watching Love Island this year, I'll be like, oh no, I'm just watching it for the design elements. I'm just appreciating it on a different level. You wouldn't understand. That's fascinating. And then how does something like Star Trek kind of come around? Like, and what was your prior relationship to the franchise?
I had watched it. I grew up in the 90s, right? I'm a 90s kid. So all the shows were out by the time I was watching TV. So everything was in syndication, everything aired out of order also. So it was Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager were all airing. And as a kid, you're watching it, and a lot of the episodes are bottle episodes, but Deep Space Nine started getting into that long form where you had to watch the previous episode in order to understand what was going on. But they still aired that stuff out of order. And then some of the characters were on different shows. Like Worf was in Deep Space Nine, and he was in Next Generation. And so I was like, as a kid, trying to like put it all together. And then the Kelvin movies came out, the JJ movies, and so I had watched those, and I said, oh, I should go back and see. Like, what we had Star Trek the Motion Picture like in our VHS collection. So I was always like a big sci-fi fan, like Star Trek, Star Wars, everything. Then over COVID, I had not a lot to do like everybody. And so I binge watched like the entire everything, like original series, next gen, all everything. And so I was actually in the middle of Deep Space Nine, or actually I think I was into Voyager by the time they had hired me. And then somebody told Dave Blass, "Oh, Liz just watched everything." And so in my head, I'm like, I have the whiteboard and the strings, and I'm putting it all together. But Dave loved it because he was like, "Oh, this is somebody who actually watches Star Trek." And it's not like, "Oh, I'm doing a sequel to a movie. I probably should watch the movie." This was like you're watching 26 episodes times five, so many seasons, and even just I had a 3-week marathon where I watched all the movies. And so it's nice when that stuff is fresh because it's not like, oh, I watched this show 30 years ago. Like I watched it all during COVID. So that research was really there, but you start to get like, it's like the saga kind of gets in, you start falling in love with the characters. And so something that you're like in passing, oh yeah, I remember that guy, the android. And now I'm like, but Data, like I'm so, you get so attached to these characters. So then you're attached, and then you go to work and they're there, and you're like, what?
Yeah. It must be quite true, because I suppose you go from things we're coming in where it's all like original characters, like it's Under the Silver Lake, to, oh, these people are as old as I am, or these characters have like huge arcs and so on. And I suppose you just almost are conscious of fitting into something, I guess.
Yeah. No, I mean, and everyone knows each other, and they actually had already done season 1. I came in the middle of season 2, so everyone had already kind of worked together by the time I had come in. So then you're trying to like elbow your way into this family that's already existing. But a lot of shows, you just get, it's a new art department. Like How to Get Away with Murder, it was season 4 when we all came in. So everyone knew each other for 4 seasons, and then they're like, "Hey, who are you?" And I'm like, "Here I am."
It was interesting kind of thinking back to it, like, because it must have presented like interesting counterpoints as an art director, because like that season 2 is very much that present day LA, your home turf, and then you've got sort of like season 3, which is all but completely set based. Did that sort of present challenges, or did they sort of balance themselves out quite nicely for using your skills?
Yeah, they took me off of season 2 kind of at the end of it to start on season 3 to get a jump. So I had done, I'm a location pro, like Silver Lake was all locations. Promising Young Woman was all locations. So I'm pretty good at doing location work. And so I was the location, Bruce and I were the location art directors for season 2. And then Bruce ended up leaving. I took Bruce's job, and then they took me off of locations and put me into Sick Bay and Elios for season 3. So for me, it was really, when you're doing stage stuff, you just need more time, because you need time to concept art it, you need time to draft it, you need time to take it to construction and break it down and order the materials and the shipping time. And we did everything during COVID, so all the shipping delays, like there was just so much going on at that time. So the more time you have, I guess the easier the job is.
Was it frustrating or like an exciting challenge to have to work within a world where so much of the design is already cemented before you even come in? And I suppose there's an element of design, but maybe having your hand tied behind your back, or is it just exciting to play with like what's already there, all the toys that you've got over like 60 years, I guess?
Yeah, no, it's so much fun to use that world as your base. It's definitely harder to design a sci-fi high concept world on a blank piece of paper and have it be accepted. Okay, here's our art. So for me, it's because I'm a strong researcher, that was a plus. There's a funny story about, we were doing the revamped transporter room, and I was in some argument with somebody about lighting it because they didn't. The lights weren't the way they should, where the little lily pads light up underneath each person. everything just turned on all at once, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm like this is bad, and I'm like that's not how transporters work, and this guy was like because they're real, right? And I was like, yeah, they are real. Like I'm watching original series, they've been around since the 60s. So yeah, they're not real, but they're real in the way that they're in the sense that they're established. This is how it works. And so it was a funny, like nerdy sci-fi argument, and we fixed it and everything was fine. But I was like, you do have to go back and say, oh, well, what are their materials and how do they use it? And I actually had to not only take it from all of the shows, I also, because they had designed um, the bridge had been designed in season 2, the Stargazer, which we revamped into the Titan. That in itself, they had established a lot of new shapes and a lot of new like material vernacular that I had to then use as my base for all of the other rooms in the ship. So like sick bay, crew quarters, transporter room, nacelle room, all these rooms are in that Titan ship. So we actually went in and I took pictures of the bridge to study what they had already done so that we were bringing shapes into these new sets. So it's a research. It really is. If you suck at research, then you have a hard time doing what we do.
What was it like working on that season 3? Because it felt like one of the biggest secrets. Like you've got this cast that you've just been watching in COVID right in front of you have like assembled again. And like the world has no idea. There was no leaks, nothing until that trailer came out. How much of a challenge was that to be quiet and not telling your friends or accidentally letting it slip?
Yeah, no, it was hard, and it's funny too because you're talking about it to like a lot of my friends are at work, so we all know. But like I worked on it 2 years ago. So like my sister, she's my confidant. She doesn't watch Star Trek and she doesn't care. And I'm like, this is so important. Like, and she's like, I feel like you told me this like 2 years ago, and like nothing, she didn't, thank God she didn't tell anybody, but like it's a hard secret to keep, and we knew to keep it like, oh, we know not to post anything on any show, not to post anything for spoilers, but this was just such a big secret. And we actually had to be careful because as we started posting on Twitter, you got to be careful with what is seen in your office photos because I like my office was covered with Enterprise D stuff. And so I'm like, oh, I can't post any of this. Like one time I posted something and it had a poster in the background of a Titan diagram and it was the wrong diagram or something. And fans like zoomed in on it. They're like, what is this diagram? And you're like, oh no, like you've got to be so careful with blurring out everything that you don't want people to see. So it is a hard secret to keep. But I've been lucky that I've been so busy. So I went straight from Picard to, I've done 3 shows since that. So, you kind of forget.
You touched on that delay. Was like there frustration with like that delay of like almost 2 years from all this work that you've done, these sets, things you brought to life that have wowed people, and then sort of being able to wishing you could go, I wish I could put this in my portfolio. I wish I could tell people all this amazing work that I've done, and having to sit on something like that for a while. Or are you able to sort of like when you're pitching for jobs, be able to say, hey, I recreated the Enterprise D bridge. You can't really tell anyone, but look how impressive my work can be.
Yeah, you have to wait. So I had actually a profile already ready, like a new portfolio with it all in there that I've just been waiting to use. And I can't put it online. I can't send it to anybody because if it leaks, that would be catastrophic. But it was a little different because we shot season 2 and 3 back to back. And so season 2 aired. It didn't feel like there was a big delay for season 2 to air, but then there's a break. And then we had already shot season 3. So that gap was because we shot season 3 with season 2. But yeah, it can be a little like I'm getting credit now for something I did 2 years ago. So like they're like, oh, your career is taking off, and I'm like, well, I took off 2 years ago.
Like you obviously recreated that bridge and so on, like very much like this tribute to like 80s filmmaking and design. And I was curious, like, what was your big takeaway on how things have evolved as like in an art director role from then to now, perhaps for better or worse to an extent?
I think it was better. I think the tools that we have are better, are easier to work with. The ability to CNC cut stuff, with a machine, the foam milling with a machine. We have a lot of skills now a lot of tools that we use in construction and paint that they didn't have in the 80s. I bring up frequently. They had pool noodles that they used to line the trim of the bridge in the 80s. And so when you put plaster on a pool noodle, it kind of looks like plaster on a pool noodle. But we're shooting in 4K where, I mean, I've had people have asked me before, like, oh, you're dealing with 4K now. Like, what were the changes in how you had to do stuff? And I'm like, well, there is no change because we're always shooting in 4K. Every set that we do, the sick bay is shot in 4K, so that we're still using the same tools and methodology. But you're looking at this set, and you have to reflect on how did they do it, how will we do it, and how will it be different because we're using different tools. So, will our results be different, or we're trying to nail it kind of really close to what they did. For instance, all the L cars, all the graphics, I can print everything exactly as it looks like on my computer screen. We'll print to backlit film. The backlit film will go on to Plexi, and I can guarantee that the colors are going to look like that. But Mike Okuda will, he'll give you the speech about how they printed stuff and it was on a film that then they gelled to change the colors. But when the gels are mixed with neons, the end result, he has no control over what the end result is. So he had designed all these beautiful purple and orange and, lightish graphics that came out very green and very blue. And he's like, oh, this isn't anything like what I wanted. But then I'm discussing with Mike, well, I'm going to print it exactly as we want it. So should I be printing it blue because that's how fans remember it? And he was like, yeah. But so you have more control over it now, or even the lighting. Like, we're not lighting with neons, we're lighting with LEDs, and the LEDs have the spectrum of the rainbow that we can control what the colors are. So it's much cleaner. And Dave snuck Herman Zimmerman into the set on a Sunday. Like, Herman and Dan Curry came to look at it, and he was like, hey, did you want to come? I'm like, yeah, I want to come have this original designer see the set. And the first thing Herman, he came in, he sat in the captain's chair, and then he walked into the turbo lift, and he's like, it's so clean. It's so well constructed and well created. It's probably the best constructed version of this set because he's remembering smashed plaster and the stains on the carpet and stuff falling off the walls and all of this stuff that ours was. It was every line, everything was just clean and dialed in because the craftspeople that we have they have the tools and they have it to make it great.
I was really lucky to see like the episodes in advance, like through press screenings, and I was excited for like people to see that reveal and some of the work that was done. Like for someone like yourself, like And Under the Silver Lake comes out, it trickles out, people see it. Someone 7 years later drops you a message going, love to chat about that film with you. What's it like for something like that where there's almost a around the world drop on the same day? Are you sitting there like at midnight waiting to see the reaction to, say, a bridge being brought back to life for the artwork that you've done on sort of social media? Or are you just like, I'm going to call it a night, I'm going to wake up the next morning and just search? How did you kind of treat it?
Yeah, it's hard because you're so excited. So like on Tuesday, I'll be like, oh, Thursday's coming, and I'm so excited. And then Thursday comes and I'm at 6 a.m. I have to go to work because I'm shooting something else right now. So I'll go and do that, and then I'll come home and I just stay off the internet until I watch it. And then after that, it's actually funny because the time zones have seen it differently. And so by the time I get to the internet, like thousands of people have already posted their opinions. And then I'll try to get in there and post something. But I'm like, I watched it with everybody else. I didn't get anything early. So for me, it was like Thursday at 10 p.m. Mountain Time. I'm finally watching it. And like Dave's texting me, and I'm like, don't text me, I haven't seen it yet. But I had to watch it on Thursday because by Friday, like, it would have been spoiled for me. And I read the scripts and I was there while they were shooting, but I'm still crying. Like,
Kind of looking back on your career so far, like what's that piece of work that you're most proud of, and why? Whether it's like a fanzine or a map or an enterprise bridge, like what are you kind of most proud of, I guess? What's that key bit in your portfolio?
the Enterprise D bridge was probably my favorite. Now, I know it's the freshest in our memories, but it's the one that I think people appreciated the most because we put so much effort into getting it right. And it's nice that, I mean, that one maybe is the one that people have commented on the most, but we really did put our heart and souls into getting it exactly as it was. And there were many late nights of me stressing over the door jambs being the wrong thickness because they're going to know, no one's going to know, but But I think that the heart that went into the Enterprise D bridge was probably what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, and quite rightly so. It still blows my mind as someone that had that in toy form, you know, I was in the bag for something like that happening. I didn't expect it to happen, but I was blown away by it.
Even it's funny, so seeing the bridge on camera, yeah, like you're gonna have that reaction. But for me, it was in episode 9 when the shuttle's approaching the bridge, and there's just a shot of Jean-Luc sitting leaning forward to look at it. And that for me, I was just like, oh, like you do get choked up, because of the significance that bridge had for that character, and that's funny. That character was my little baby. I have pictures of the empty stage, and then each element as it went in, and people are like, oh, is this gonna work? Like, well, let's check with Liz, she'll know, and just like really, really trying to get it right.
Do you know? I'm sure like it might have been something you filmed already, but will we get will it be a fitting circle for you and that be turned into like a Blu-ray special feature or something like that in the near future when it gets to home video?
Yeah, so the Blu-ray people zoomed with me, but they zoomed with me like what early, like I've done enough conversations now where I can kind of talk about it naturally, but I have a really awkward interview with somebody for the Blu-ray. So I'm kind of not looking forward to whatever hopefully they don't use anything of me in there, but there is BTS for Blu-ray. I think there's also some behind the scenes for the art of the making of Picard, like the Art of Picard
Oh
book.
yeah, I've got that on pre-order at the moment. I think it's a couple months away as well.
Yeah. So there's a chance that there's some stuff in there, but for me, I've really photographed every step of the way making that set. I've sent a lot of stuff out to the DVD and a lot of stuff to the book, so I'm hoping that they use stuff. But as far as like my interviews, they're all pretty awkward.
And you mentioned obviously you're working at the moment, but like Hollywood seems to be in that state of paralysis right now with the striking and so on. How's that impacting your kind of career at the moment, or are you sort of in a bit of a bubble for now?
I'm in a bit of a bubble because I'm shooting a limited series that's already been written. So we're not the writers. Like, I mean, they've already done the revisions. It's 6 episodes, and we got all 6 episodes before we started filming. So we are still proceeding because there's no picket line where we're shooting in the wilderness. So for me, I've been very fortunate that I'm still working, and I'm not. I mean, it really sucks to have 3 months off. Or a lot of my friends, it's not just when the strike started. Projects that they were working on stopped 2 months before the strike started because they were waiting for the strike. So then you look at people that are going to be out of work for 5 months, or maybe even longer, depending on how long the strike goes. So I've been very fortunate that I've been able to keep working, and it'll hopefully the strike ends and then I'm done this job and then something else will come up. It's nice to have some time off, but I've just been fortunate that we were not really affected by it.
What's kind of coming up for you? Is there stuff that you've worked on in sort of past few months that's coming to air soon, or is there some exciting projects on the horizon we should look out for?
Yeah, I did. So I told you I did 3 projects since Picard. I did this season 1 of the show called Kindred on Hulu, which I think was canceled, but I'm hoping that another network picks it up because it has a big fan base. It's based off of an Octavia Butler book. It's called Kindred. I thought actually watching it, I thought it came out really great, but that wasn't renewed. So that's just a 1 season. And then I did the first half of season 1 of Quantum Leap. So if you're watching the new Quantum Leap, but I left that job to do the one I'm on now, which is called American Primeval for Netflix. So it's like a Peter Berg, like Oregon Trail race across the country. It's like a survival thriller. It's not. People say not to call it a Western because it's more of a American Gothic. Like everyone's in the West trying to make it to, not even just to California. They're just trying to survive. And they get out kind of where the Mormon Trail and the Oregon Trail meet at Fort Bridger. There's a lot of activity that happens there, and you follow a couple of storylines out there. So
excellent. And for anyone that's wanting to keep up to date with any of the work you're doing or any work that you're sharing, where's kind of the best sort of social media platforms for you?
Probably Twitter or Instagram. Mm-hmm. Twitter, I probably post on the most, but I wasn't a big Twitter person, so I have my Instagram's pretty active too. Yeah. So I think checking you can message me on either of those
Excellent.
sites and I'll see it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat about Under the Silver Lake, Love Island, and Star Trek, the three of them together at last, and so on. But no, I've really, really appreciated hearing your insights and stories. And yeah, good luck with everything to come.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you're welcome. It's been nice being here.